Right, greetings. Welcome back to our philosophy club here in the middle of France, in La Creuse. We have a lovely river just nearby, La Creuse. That's the smaller La Creuse Petite. There's a bigger one, and then they join to make the Super Grand, which goes past, floats all the way down to the Loire, and it passes a town called Descartes. And I want to start my little introductory talk with a brief mention of Descartes, who was born and brought up in that town, which you would get to if you followed from my river down to the Loire. And to remind people, if they don't know of this book, I discovered this miraculously in Thalia today. I've been looking for it. It's a novel by a British author, Guinevere Glassford. It's called The Words in My Hand. And she's reconstructed the private life of Descartes when he lived in Holland, where he was for over 20 years, in fact. He liked the freedom of thought that Holland provided. He wanted to get out of France, which was quite strict and very Catholic dominated. And although he was Catholic, he wanted to be a free-thinking philosopher. And you could only really do that in Holland, in Europe in those days. And anyway, cut a long story short, he lived in a house in Amsterdam owned by a British bookseller called Thomas Sargent, who was like the hub of nucleus of radical thinkers. When they went to Holland, they went and saw Thomas Sargent and bought books off him. And there's a very interesting book by Margaret Jacob called The Radical Enlightenment, which is subtitled Pantheists, Freemasons and Republicans, which is about that whole period, the sort of proto-enlightenment, bred in Holland. And this guy, Thomas Sargent, is mentioned in that book as being doing all the books for them. So Descartes, of course, went to live with Thomas Sargent, hired a room above him, and he fell in love with his maid, Thomas Sargent's maid, housekeeper, whatever. And Descartes had a wisdom affair, and he taught her to read, because she was a maid who didn't read and write. And this book is a novel reconstructing from what we know about historically, about their love affair, or what I call a wisdom affair. And it's beautifully written. Now, we were discussing just the other day about rationality, what is reason. Descartes is called the founder of rationalism in modern philosophy. And yet my point is that he also did some things that were not quite rational, like have an affair. And they also had a daughter as well, who sadly died at the age of 5. So there's a whole history to Descartes that hasn't been known. When I was taught Descartes, my professors never told me about his secret love affair. And I think it sheds new light on what we mean. And to me, reason has to include the unconscious and feeling and the language of the heart and the research that's coming out about the intelligence of the heart, as well as mere reason in the sense of pure logic. So anyway, there we are. I hope Descartes fans rush out and get the book and conceptualize what we mean by reason.
Can I say something?
Please do, yes, feel free to interrupt.
Said that Descartes also did things that weren't rational, like have an affair. I don't necessarily think having an affair is necessarily unrational. And then you seem to agree with that yourself when you then said that rationality should be done from the heart.
Yes, I mean, absolutely, thanks for spotting that. Yes, I mean, all I'm doing is just saying there's a bigger conversation to be had about what we mean by mere reason, pure reason. And that if we include the reason of the heart, then we're extending our definitions maybe, which would enrich philosophy, I think. It's interesting that I have read scientific biographies of Descartes' work, and his thought became much deeper after his daughter died. He was interested in kind of thought experiments and stuff before that, and after that he really began to think deeper thoughts. So it impacted on his life. And that's why I think we need to combine the study of philosophy with history. If I was teaching philosophy in a formal sense at university again, I would do as I always did, which is I always get students to read the biography of the thinker in the historical context of their time, because that sheds huge light on the evolution of their thought, including their psychological biography. So that's one thing I wanted to share, and I think that's exciting. And the little river just near us goes down to past Descartes' hometown, which is now named in his honour. Something else I want to share that's exciting is I'm working on my 99 Names of Peace, of course, and peace is very much in the air. We've just had the death of Yahya Sinwar, found in Gaza, who seems to have been one of the key thinkers behind the whole Hamas attack on October the 7th. It's watching a Greek tragedy, karma catching up with him. I wish that would be the end of the Gaza war, and the IDF military could pull out and the Gaza people can try and rebuild, hopefully without Hamas being involved in administering the region, and international agencies can go in and help rebuild. Netanyahu seems determined to carry on with his war. I don't know what his war plans are. I mean, does he want to destroy every single, I hate to think what his war plans are. And all the reports I've read are he hasn't actually got any. He's just, all he knows is he doesn't want the war to stop, because then there'll be an accounting. He'll have to face the trials that have been postponed. He's been indicted for certain criminal activity. He'll have to face that, and he'll have to face, lots of other problems. So in a sense, war's good for him, and I find that very cynical. So it's the other thing that should happen, of course, is the hostages should be released. And I noted American millionaires offered a large sum of money to anyone that releases them. If the Gazan people actually surrender the hostages, he will give this money to whichever group does. And I think that would be a good solution. So I hope that happens. And then that would really give Israel no more excuse to carry on attacking Gaza. They would have to, I think, pull out then. And America would probably just, insist, as would Britain. So that's good. That's kind of good, and we're still in this limbo land. But so I'm working on this book, The 99 Names of Peace, which always seems very sadly relevant to our times. And this week I've been working on the Etruscan language, and I just want to share some of my discoveries about the Etruscan language, which is absolutely fascinating. I've always been interested in Latin. Obviously, I studied Latin for 7 years, and as a philosopher, one has to learn a certain degree of Latin, because many words in philosophy are from Latin roots. And it's a fascinating language. And what I've been discovering is how much of Latin is actually Etruscan in origin. I think this is the big secret. I've discovered the secret of Rome. Rome is actually an Etruscan city. Right, honest. What do I mean? Well, one thing, the alphabet that we call the Latin alphabet is an Etruscan alphabet. It was taught to the Romans by the Etruscans. The Etruscans provided most of the early kings of Rome, apart from my favourite, Numa Pompilius, who was a Sabine, but the rest were Etruscan, apart from Romulus. And it's thought that the name Rome itself was an Etruscan word. So the idea that it came from Romulus is a later invention to disguise that. And the Etruscans gave religious terminology and ritual practices to the Romans. The Romans are famous for their religiosity, and they still are to this day, with Roman Catholicism. But actually that's Etruscan piety that we're seeing there. The Etruscans were highly religious people who believed in the gods, and that we have a duty to uphold our morality and our joie de vivre. The Etruscans loved life. They weren't seeking disembodiment. They loved life. But they wanted it to be done with style and with devotion, with piety. The names of their gods are really interesting. The supreme god is Tinia. And this is the god of the day, like Zeus is the god of light and the daylight. So Tinia, the supreme god, rules the daytime. The goddess of fertility, marriage, love, motherhood is Uni, which is the equivalent of Juno, and it's thought to be the origin of the word Juno. They have a goddess of wisdom and the arts, Minerva, similar to Minerva, and again it's thought that that came from the Etruscan. They have a god of the underworld, Aita, A-I-T-A, who's like Hades or Pluto, who lives in the underworld and rules the land of the dead. Then they have a god of trade and travel, like Hermes, Turnus, and then I think my favourite is they have the equivalent of Dionysus or Bacchus, the god of wine, vegetation and happiness, who is called Fuflans, which is a great name, Fuflans. They also have a god of water, Nethuns, who's like Neptune or Poseidon, and so on. So all these different names of gods. I'm not going to read them all out, but I've been researching them all and their etymologies. And they have female spirits, like Greek nymphs called Lassa. And they have different names for the Muses. And since this is like a home for the Muses, the Museum of the Muses, I was particularly interested to discover their names. So Calvi is the Etruscan for Calliope, the muse of politics. Clei is Etruscan for Clio, muse of history. Erat is the equivalent of Erato. And these muses got to the Etruscans before they got to Rome. The Etruscans were in intellectual and trade relations with the Greeks long before the Romans. And that's why they were such a sophisticated people. They also borrowed money, the invention of money, from the Greeks, and there were Etruscan coins that had been found before Roman. So they were a sophisticated urban culture with towns and so on. And they loved their muses. They also had Eutere, who's Euterpe, Mele, Melpomene, Polymnia, who's Polyhymnia. So they took the names from the Greeks, but they gave them an Etruscan twist. Thal is Thalia. And Apollo, the room we're in, Apollo, is Apullu. So it's been fun studying Etruscan, and there's about 12 different theories about where did the Etruscan language come from. And there's people that say it was a Semitic language, others, because it was originally written right to left, like Hebrew and Arabic. That's interesting. So some people say it was a Semitic language, others say it was like connected with North European languages. And there's a whole group that say no, it was Hungarian derived, or it was from Asia. The more I've been studying Etruscan, I have to say one other theory is that it was, every textbook says it's not an Indo-European language, it's something else we don't know about. And then the theory is, well, what is it? I have to say, having put it in the context of my 99 Names of Peace, so many of its words are very Indo-European to me. I think to me, I would say, at this state of research, I would say Etruscan is probably an Indo-European language, an early one. And many of the words are very, very similar to Roman, to Latin. Like the word for father is api, etc. There are just so many words overlapping, but I suspend judgment. But it's an interesting language, I think, with lots to tell us. So the other thing I wanted to share is I found another book upstairs in my miraculous exploration of Thalia, or should I say Thal, since we're doing Etruscan. And this was about Voltaire. This is a biography of his last years when he lived in Switzerland. And I was sharing a story this week about when he was dying. and it's a great story about the Catholic priest was trying to convert him back to Catholicism, and was trying to insist, and making a big solemn dance, waving a crucifix and saying, "Do you renounce the devil and all his works?" And Voltaire, who was dying, opened one eye and said, "I don't think now's the time to be making new enemies." This famous quip. And so this is, the details are given in this book, Voltaire in Exile, which is where I heard that story. And I enjoyed sharing that with the Jehovah's Witnesses that used to come round here to the house to try and convert me to Christianity. Even though I'm a faithful Anglican, I don't need converting. But they were sure that I needed. And the irony is that the one that used to come round is a direct descendant of Voltaire. So history has this wonderful sense of humour, because the current Jehovah's Witness in La Creuse is a descendant of Voltaire, trying to convert me, an Anglican Druid, into whatever, I don't know, But I think I'm with Voltaire on this. I think we've got to grow out of our simplistic Manichaean worldviews, whereby our faith is the only one and the other people worship the devil. And I said a few days, a couple of sessions ago, when my colleague asked me what was Netanyahu's religion, and I said, in a sort of slightly angry mode, I said, well, Satanism. I think I want to just reinterpret that, revisit that comment. What I meant by that is that where he's coming from is this bipolar world, where you're either with Israel, in which case you're good, or you're with them, Islam, in which case you're bad. It's not that, as I said, he's not actually a practicing Satanist. He wouldn't have a clue, but what he is carrying that mentality of bipolarity. And so are those kind of people. And I think that's a curse on the planet. I think that's what Voltaire was saying when he was refusing to surrender to simplistic bipolar religion, such as the Catholic priest trying to get him to convert. No, he was a Freemason, he was a free thinker, he was a human rights defender, and he was a friend of Benjamin Franklin. And I think we need more Voltaires on the planet, and we need less Netanyahu types. And Yahya Sinwar as well was obviously the same kind of person, because they demonized Israel just as much as Israel demonizes them. And I think that's what we have to grow out of as a planet. And Trump does the same with polarizing American politics into us and them. We're the good guys, they're demonic. So I think an inclusive approach to reality, transcending the polarizations, is what's needed. So that's why I appreciate Voltaire's comment there. Okay, any other points? Any comments, reflections on that? Any ideas?
I don't.
Okay. What's the devil in Dutch?
Dutch, duivel.
Duivel. Duivel, okay. I don't think there's a word in Etruscan for the devil. There isn't a word. They didn't have one, as nor did the Celts, nor do all. By the way, it's possible Etruscan is quite closely related to Celtic. That's another theory. And we do know that the Druids and the Etruscans were in close proximity in North Italy. I've been to the north of Italy, and north of Tuscany was Druid land. And the Celts founded Bologna and lots of those cities in the north. And we keep digging up archaeological remains from Celtic Italy. And I have friends who are Druids in the north of Italy now. And I think they shared ideas with the Etruscans. And they found here in Gaul, in graves of senior people, like at the lady, the Princess of Vix, they found Etruscan artifacts that were imported into Gaul 1000 BC, 800 BC. And there was a port in the south of France near Montpellier where Etruscan trade was going a brisk pace, long before Rome was even founded. So the Druids, the Celts, the Gauls and the Etruscans were chums, and they were sharing ideas. as well, which I've explained all in my Encyclopedia of Druid Studies. So it's been it's been a good week so far. With and tomorrow is the start of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, in the Pacific, and I ought to be there since I'm coordinator of the Commonwealth Interfaith Network. But I send my blessings to the people of Samoa who are hosting this Commonwealth meeting. I founded that Commonwealth Heads of Government Interfaith Network in Edinburgh when I attended one of these choghams, as they're called, and they discuss world politics and policy from the Commonwealth has 54 nations, and one thing that I do know from personal encounters is that the Palestinians really want to join the Commonwealth when and if they finally get independence. I just would like there to be some of them left, and Netanyahu not to go mad and try and kill them all. I would like the Commonwealth to be much more robust in defending the rights of Palestinians to autonomy and to an independent state. And I think David Lammy is singing from the same hymn sheet that I'm singing to, and would agree with that. So, so anyway, blessings on the Samoans for hosting it, and I hope all the Commonwealth countries come together and issue a declaration, of support for a peaceful, mediated solution to this horrible conflict. And I think we have a duty to accept Palestine as a member of the Commonwealth. India and Pakistan would I'm sure welcome her. So, and I've also been attending the Wisdom Keepers Council this week, run by my friend Satyen Raja of Canada, great Commonwealth citizen. He was born in Uganda, lived in London, moved to Canada as a young man, so very, very much a Commonwealth citizen like me. I was born in Canada. And I think the Commonwealth's important, 53 nations, of every single religion, every single culture and language. And we should be a microcosm of how we can get interfaith harmony. And that's why I designed, that's what gave me the perspective of wanting to do the table. I just wish it was in Samoa. I don't know any Commonwealth heads of state will be. I'll write to them all and say, hi, hope you had a good meeting, and send them the PDF of the thing for next time. These things happen every 2 years. I'm not sure what the next one will be. They'll decide that in Samoa. So yes, it's been quite busy. Anyway, the Wisdom Keepers Council run by Satyen, we had a meeting, I think just a couple of days ago, last night even, Friday, was a good meeting as ever. Interesting bunch of people turned up, and we do breakouts where we talk heart to heart in depth about things. And one of our illustrious company, Bill Softkey, revealed that his physics PhD was supervised by a guy that's just won the Nobel Prize for Physics, which is quite fun. And Bill is a very humble guy. He's a genius. We call him the nerd of the group. He knows an awful lot about physics, but is also interested in metaphysics and bridging the gap. And it's nice that his supervisor got the Nobel Prize for physics. And it's all to do with AI and using sophisticated equations to make artificial intelligence even better. So that was good. I think we need we've got a Nobel Peace Prize, that's good, and won by a South Korean author, right? Who won the Nobel Peace Prize this year? It was the South Korean won it for literature, right? It's just escaped me. I think it's been announced. Yes, it was the Japanese hibakushas, the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There's a small group of them still alive, elderly people, and they're campaigning for the ending of nuclear weapons, and they rightfully won that. I've been at conferences where I've met some of these people. They're because what they lived through was horrendous. So yes. So, but I think we need a, I don't know, we need a Nobel Prize in philosophy, maybe, joined up thinking. I don't think there is one at the moment. And that's part of the problem of the world. We think in bits, and so you get a Nobel Prize for some little bit of knowledge, but you don't get one for putting all the knowledge together into a wholeness, i.e. philosophy. So, anyway, any billionaires out there want to fund a Nobel Prize in philosophy, I'm sure the Nobel Institute would welcome the setting of one up. That would be a jolly good thing. Okay, let's stop there. And any last questions, and then we'll go on to our periodic table. Okay, greetings. Right, let's look at the periodic table then. If you choose one box each, either, you know, by deliberation or by divine weird. And I think what we might do, anyway. Okay, have you got one? All of you?
Not for mine. It was Christian one box, but I lost it. How is that possible?
It's not the one down there, like the other Christian ones.
Oh,
A Christian one you wanted.
hey, yes, you're right. Thank you.
Have you got one as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we'll do, slightly different game, because I've just spoken at length. I'm going to get you to present your thing. What have you chosen first?
Present.
What have you chosen?
Rastafari.
Okay, so just say something about the Rastafarian tradition, what you know so far.
Nothing.
Like,
I'm sure you told me about it once before, but it's quite some time ago.
okay. Okay, so that's it. It's a form of Christianity. That's
Hi,
all.
voila.
Okay, right. Well, I'll just respond to Noah, and then we'll go round and you present yours and stuff.
Thank you.
First.
I'll take care of the fire.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about mine either. I
Well,
don't
that's
know why
fine.
I don't know why I choose one that I did know loads about.
Well, that's all right. We'll hear what you do know. I expect Amel's chosen one that he knows lots about, or you may have questions about that. So we'll start with the Rastafarians. Okay, so
I have a new one. It's not
you've
here.
changed your. Okay,
No, but it's not in
it's not on the table yet.
No.
Well, there we are. That's that'll be interesting when we come to it. Well, I'll. So the Rastafarian religion was a synthesis in Jamaica of the descendants of slaves transported from Africa, who ended up in the West Indies, mostly in Jamaica, and their ideology was very much about Africa was their homeland, and they were nostalgic to go back, and particularly to Ethiopia. And so they discovered Ethiopian Christianity, which has a rich and deep history, and it's the oldest Christian kingdom in Africa, and it had a great ruler, Haile Selassie, who had died by the time Rastafarianism came into being. But so they sort of idealized this former king, Haile Selassie, and in some ways it's like a normal version of Christianity. They believe Jesus Christ was the Son of God, that he came to earth with the mission to bring peace, that we humans are in danger of, following the wrong path unless we listen to that message and follow the path of peace and love. Ethiopian Christianity, as I say, was founded in the 4th century by missionaries from Egypt. There are 9 holy apostles who went to Ethiopia, bringing sacred books with them from Egyptian Christianity. What's always interested me about Ethiopian Christianity is their Bible is bigger than the conventional Bible of the Protestant or Catholic churches. They had extra books which we regard, or the Western churches regard, as heretical or apocryphal. Most important being the Book of Enoch, which I've studied and commented on, which tells the backstory of the war in heaven between the devil and God, going back to the discussion about diabology. So they think that they understand, by reading the Book of Enoch, how we got here on this planet, having this war of good and evil going on. Tells the backstory. Yeah, Amel.
Is it part of the Talmud?
No, it's not in. No, it was rejected by the Jewish Bible as well. Yes, it's only read by scholars and experts in religious studies, but the Ethiopians have been reading it all along. This is the extraordinary thing. And what I don't know, and I haven't yet managed to find, is what do Rastafarians read as a Bible? You know, I've searched online, I've tried to find the Rastafarian Bible. I'd like to have that conversation with any Rastafarian out there to get in touch. I mean, if they're reading the Orthodox Ethiopian Bible, it will have the Book of Enoch in. Now, Enoch was a prophet, according to the Book of Enoch, which I've done a whole commentary on, who lived before Noah and after Adam. And he's in the Bible, so his book is in the Old Testament early on. And this prophet, who was a righteous man, was one day visited. He lived in the plain of Shinar, sort of Iraq, if you want. He was visited by a holy angel who said to him, "Come on, Enoch, I'm going to take you up to heaven." And they travel miraculously in a chariot. Now, I know friends would interpret that as a UFO. I mean, that's a whole discussion. But they travel somehow to the heaven worlds. And what Enoch sees and discovers there is what the book consists of. It's got a lot of pages, a lot of sections. It's got about 38 chapters, about the size of, New Testament chapter or Old Testament. And at one point he passes by a sort of underground pit where there's lots of wailing and whining. And that's where the devil is being held in prison. And they call out to him, "Enoch, Enoch, when you get to see God, tell him we're sorry. Tell him to let us go." And that's, and then you learn the backstory of why they're there. The leader of the fallen angels is called Shem-Jazza in the Book of Enoch. He's not called Lucifer or anything. Shem-Jazza is the word. And it tells the whole story of why Shem-Jazza came from heaven to earth. And basically he brought education to humanity. And he brought cosmetics and lipstick, and he loved women, and he loved life. And this was the great sin he committed, according to the Book of Enoch. Yes. He also taught weapons, and it caused trouble, let's say. We were a nice little Pacific bunch of bonobos just come down from the trees, living peacefully. And suddenly, wham, Shem-Jazza appears. Like you can imagine, a sort of advanced alien race with super weapons, corrupting these little simple primitive types. So that's one way of interpreting the Book of Enoch, which I've explained in my commentary on it. There are other ways of analysing it. I'd love to know what the Rastafarians make of it. And I haven't had that conversation, although I do know some Rastafarians quite well. I haven't yet had a chance to sit down. The other thing to say about the Rastafarians that's so interesting is they've been arguing for the legalisation of cannabis since the very dawn of history. They believe it's a holy sacrament, and that by taking cannabis in moderation from time to time, in the right company, you can have holy insights and holy conversations. And to them, that's a divine